Hi guys, thank you so much for checking out my channel. Welcome if you are a returning viewer, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Stephanie and I love to explore the holistics as well as how it connects to the physical as well as the spiritual aspects of life and how it all intertwines to affect the whole being as well as your reality. Today we have a really interesting interview where we will be talking with Dr. Frank. He's a type of holistic doctor and you will learn more about what he does in the practice as the interview goes on. So I just wanted to introduce this a little bit, kind of how I got into this space and how this all came about. So first I want to let you know that none of this is sponsored. It really was just like such a profound experience for me that I wanted to share it because I feel like more people need to know about this. I already am somebody that's interested in holistics and alternative health, and I didn't know about this. So it wasn't until I connected with one of my friends. She actually did the tattoos on my hand as well as my hip. So shout out to you, Nicole. And we didn't meet initially over holistics or anything like that. It was just the tattoos. And we ended up discussing how she used to suffer from Lyme's disease as well as an autoimmune disorder and healed that holistically with herbs and everything and frequency medicine, working with Dr. Frank. So I was super interested, and I had asked her about some symptoms that I was having because I had gone to my modern, Western doctors, and I was told none of them were issues, except I was still having less than desirable energy levels and things of that nature. So I booked an appointment with Dr. Frank, and he was able to assess what I had going on while I was here in Rhode Island and he was in Kansas over a Zoom call. So I myself am an energy healer, so I understand how this can work across distances. Like, you don't necessarily need to be in person to be able to work with this. So that's why, it worked from a distance here. But it was really fascinating, and I had such an interesting conversation, and I just got my medicine in yesterday. I have 5 separate bottles that I'm taking, 2 in the morning and 3 at night. And I've only taken 1 dose of each, and I already feel so much better. So without further ado, here we go. Dr. Frank, if you would like to introduce yourself.
My name is Dr. Kyson Frank. I am the owner and clinic director of Docere Life Center in Wichita, Kansas. We are a clinic that specializes in using everything from our internist background to energy medicine to go through and try to help people with chronic issues. We have high success rates with people with Lyme disease and other chronic issues, parasites, and these other things that build up in there. So we have 5 doctors in the clinic. All of them come from different backgrounds. We've all come together to bring all of our strengths together to kind of help as a team. And it's kind of a cool thing to have a team of doctors that likes to come in and help one another kind of figure out and get what's best for the patient. So it's kind of a neat thing to see this thing coming together and be able to really change people's lives.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that. So the way that you guys do medicine, is it something that you all have created together, or is it something that's an emerging field, so to speak?
I think it's a kind of an emerging field we're seeing a lot of ways. Going back to some of the internist background, I see a lot more of these internists that come from functional medicine backgrounds who've been doing so much of that for so long, and they're not quite getting the results they want. I see quite a few of them kind of leaning more toward the energy medicine to find things, find answers, to seek results for their patients because they're compassionate people. For the most part, most doctors are really compassionate people that want to help. Sometimes we get stuck and we can't quite figure out the answers. So, but yeah, this is something that kind of came together as kind of my vision of what I wanted to do and try to help people. And I want to help as many people as I can. So I have to bring other doctors on and train them and do things with that. So I've benefited greatly from having many great doctors as mentors through the years since I've been in practice, who I've learned a ton of things from. So it's been cool to be able to pass some of that on to other doctors and allow them to help more people. And working together as a team, that just makes it even better. So
Definitely. That's super awesome. And I love the approach, especially with the attitude of getting people answers, because I feel like a lot of what's kind of stopping people at modern medicine is, doctors not taking that extra step to be like, okay, well, why is this happening? It's just kind of like slapping a label, chronic illness. Like, that's it.
right. So to be healed, it's chronic illness.
Literally. PH.
Part of one of my backgrounds is I used to work in aircraft before I went back to school to become a doctor. Well, in that, I was in the manufacturing, so you learn how to make things efficient and try to get things better. So you learn Kaizen, you learn lean manufacturing processes, you learn Six Sigma, all these things to try to help instigate more efficiency and better results. Well, that's kind of hardwired and ingrained to me. So patients come in the door, I'm like, how fast can I get it better? How fast can I get results for them? And I'm always trying to, as we jokingly say, we chase miracles in here, because we're always trying to learn off each patient to get better results, to get better things. What do I need in my room to help them get better? We're always constantly seeking better results for chronic illness.
I love that so much. That's such a refreshing approach, especially in our society and, the Western world, at least.
Yeah.
Really amazing. Thank you. So could you elaborate a little bit on the work that you do, what it's called, and kind of how it works?
So there's a big umbrella under energy medicine, and there's all kinds of different ways of tapping in and kind of checking people's energy or the frequencies that we kind of do it. And there's people who are just naturally, they can link into people and kind of feel those things and they can work that out. Other people have to go through other ways. So there's a lot of different techniques when you go to the kinesiology side of that under the umbrella. So muscle testing, things like this. And so there's been a lot of derivatives that people have learned from each other. I learned a form from one doctor and I kind of modified that and changed it. And since that was his brand, I had to come up with my own. So we call ours somatic resonance testing. So resonance being the vibration, the frequency, somatic being the body. So we're testing that out. So we call it SRT or CERT for short. But this is how we go through it. We log into people and we actually test their frequencies and figure out what's functional, what's dysfunctional, what does the body need help with, what do I need to stand back from, leave alone. Sometimes there's something going on with the body's like, no, I got that. You need to go fix this. And so it's like, okay, so if you have 10 things wrong with you, and I can test priority, I want to deal with number one. I don't want to deal with number 10. Number one is the one that's influencing the most negative aspects of our health and our body. Let's go after that. Let's go get us the best results.
That was a really awesome explanation. Thank you. So the next question I have for you is, could you elaborate on how or why the work catches the issues and ailments that Western medicine seems to not understand or acknowledge here with the resonance testing that you do?
Absolutely. So it's interesting because my background as a functional medicine was a lot of the same laboratory testing. We just treated things more naturally and try to get to the root cause of it. So when I talk about the medical field or Western medicine, I kind of refer to them as kind of my cousins in healthcare, kind of like the British refer to us as their cousins across the sea. There's an ocean between us, but a lot of them have the same heart and passion, desire to help people, but they're stuck in a model that doesn't allow them to find anything, or they get so ingrained to, well, if the laboratory doesn't show it, if the imaging doesn't show it, on the other way of testing it, it doesn't exist. Here's an antidepressant. And I hear the story all the time, and it's frustrating because they don't know what to do after that point. Now, when we look at laboratory testing or imaging, it only shows us what it can show us. So we look at blood work. Blood work's great. We get so many metrics off of it, but blood is a closed system. It doesn't tell us what's going on in the interstitial space. It doesn't really tell us what's going on in the neurology in the brain. It doesn't really tell us what's going on in the gut. And so it's very limited, but we're trying to look through that and try to extrapolate and figure out what's going on. That's why we do stool tests. Stool tests are highly inaccurate. I can't tell you how many times I've gone through and actually had a patient take a parasite out of their stool, put it into a test kit, mail it off to the lab, and the lab says, we couldn't find anything. And they got a picture of it saying, this is what you put in. I go, yeah, that's a parasite. And they're spending $500 to $1,000 on these stool tests. You're like, it's frustrating. So where I got to doing functional medicine was I got really good at making lab work look really good. And I said, yeah. My patient was like, no, I don't feel good. And it was like, well, I can't just give them antidepressant, that's not going to be the fix. And so I started getting frustrated with that, and that started leading me off into looking for other avenues. How else can I help people get better? What am I missing here? I mean, all my education, schooling coming through, that you come out, you're like, all right, I'm ready. I'm going to go change the world. And it was frustrating because I wasn't getting the answers I was wanting. I wasn't getting the results that I wanted, because I'm very passionate about results. Going back to even my training and efficiency and everything else, I'm not getting the outcome that I want. What is wrong in our processing? So I had to go back there and say, okay, I got to change my processing here. So I had a friend of mine who was a medical doctor, and we were talking one day, and she was like, you have Lyme disease. She was doing weird things with her hand and the hand nose. I'm like, excuse me? I said, no, I've already done the laboratory testing. I said, I don't have that. She goes, yeah, you probably ought to treat that. You ought to try some things. It changed my life. And I was already a doctor for 5 years. I'd already done all this stuff. And I was still trying to figure out what was wrong with me. That's why most people become doctors, because what's wrong with me? I need to fix myself. So it completely changed my life. It's like my brain opened up. I could think clearly. I could process. I could work more than 3 days a week. Use 3 days a week. And I was done. I was exhausted after that for 4 days to recuperate for the next week. And I wasn't even doing that hard of work. But all of a sudden, it opened everything up for me. It changed my life. And I'm going, wow, that worked for me. Maybe that'll work for other people. So I had an opportunity to go work in a clinic that specialized in this, especially with chronic illness and stuff. And it's just kind of amazing how this path has led me down to all these different things that I found. And then they decided to move the clinic to another state. And I stayed here and opened my own place and started going through there and started getting challenging cases, started getting amazing results. There's a link I'm going to give you for a video called Macy's Miracle. This is one of my big learning videos or learning stories as I was working with the patient, because this is one that took me to my ragged edge to to tears into trying to figure out what am I going to do. It's a 15-year-old girl who's literally on her deathbed. And so I'll send you the link to that if you can put that out there. But this is an amazing story. It's a father and a daughter telling their story, and it's incredible. I was so lucky to be part of it. I have many other stories like this. This is the one, though, that really set me up for where I am now and how I'm treating a lot of people. Thousands of people have been helped because of what I was able to learn off that case. And so we keep trying to do that on every case because they're challenging. And so that was the big, I'll send you a link to that where you can share that. And it's a really cool story. So
I'll link that in this video as well when I post it. That's just like so inspirational that you're not like just taking no for an answer. You know, I feel like a lot of people are trained to just be like, oh, it's XYZ, that's it. So it's really cool that you were able to kind of experience that firsthand from another doctor, kind of giving you a new insight on some other things. So I was just going to ask, that's how you emerged into kind of merging, you know, the modern medicine here with the energy healing as well?
exactly, it's kind of two sides of the coin. So we got really good doing lab work and finding things over here, but finding it is one thing, fixing it's entirely the other thing. So using the energy medicines, they actually come through and figure out what they actually need to get the best results for what we're dealing with in a priority order. Because we get lab work, you just have all these things wrong. You don't know where to start at or what the number one thing is. So by doing this and having those two things there allowed me to take my education from one side and this experience from the other side and really get both sides of the coin to really start getting some great results.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you. I had received my medicine bottles yesterday and I started them last night and then this morning. I've only taken one dose of each of them. I literally cannot even express to you that I already feel better. Like I already feel so much better and it's like amazing to me. So
I get to do a happy dance right now, but it'd be really embarrassing.
I know I would love that.
So no,
Yeah.
but those are big things. I love hearing the stories. I mean, even in the beginning, just to see that, people go, is it weird that I feel better already the next day? I'm like, no, that's great. Sometimes it takes a week. If you're feeling better, great the next day, that means we're right on track here. We're getting right in the vein of where we need to be to get those results.
That's
So
so
thrilled to hear
awesome.
that.
I love that. Yeah, I was like wondering, and I was like, well, I know that my body is definitely more sensitive to everything than I feel like most people.
Yeah.
But I could definitely feel the difference almost immediately. And I think it was the heart chakra one, the sad boy bite. I could
Yeah.
feel it immediately. It felt better. I was like, whoa, am I calm and like at peace right
But
now?
shifting those emotions and dealing with that stuff that's sitting there, that and those things, when they get stuck in our system, they completely alter our being of who we are. And so you start to deal with those and allow your body to process those emotions. It allows you to start to actually project who you really are.
I love that so much. It's so insightful. Yeah, I did have, it was interesting because I had some almost like thoughts, I guess, of like emotionally traumatic situations I had been through in the past. And they just surfaced while I was like showering last night. It was just like a matter of fact. It was like it just wanted to be acknowledged from my body. And when I was sitting there, it was just kind of like, yeah. And then it just passed away. Like
It allows your body to process that through, to clear it
Yeah.
out, because those emotions they build, they're toxic for you. So it's a detox of the nature to pull that stuff out there to allow your body and your organs, because they respond to all these different things differently. There's a book called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. There's a whole section on there, all the different parts of your body and the emotions that are attached to that and what they could be. So sometimes we'll pull out in the room here and somebody's like, oh, I'm having a hip issue. Okay, well, here's what this means from this. So if you want to get that book, it's a really good one.
I
They have
just wrote it
they have a
down.
little cheat sheet deal that you can go through and look at them all, but from eyes to feet and all these emotions that are attached to these things, that we see people coming in, well, I'm having this chronic hip issue or this chronic knee issue. I'm like, okay, we ruled everything else out. Let's go through and talk about it from an emotional point of view. What emotions are in there? You don't bend your knee. What is it that's going on there? And it's amazing how you start dealing with some things, how everything starts moving again.
Wow.
Because these emotions are things that are trapped in these different areas of the body. So
Yeah. Two questions stemming off that. So the first one, do you ever get patients that come in with that and you know, kind of approach it from that way where we've ruled everything else out, let's talk emotions? Do they kind of get like resistant? And are they kind of like, why would that?
they're a little hesitant at first, because it's like, well, these are my emotions. I don't want to necessarily go through it. But we
Yeah.
have that emotions test kit. And so sometimes I go through, I said, we don't talk about anything, but I'm just gonna go through and tell you what emotions I'm picking up on you. So I go through the test kit and figure it all out, and I read them all out to them. And there you go, they're some just start crying. Others are like, yeah. I said, how'd I do? Pretty good. Like, uh-huh. And so we go through a lot of clinics as we go through that, but we're triggering, we're bringing things up there when we do that, and they recognize, oh, these emotions are real. I really have to acknowledge these things, to deal with these things. What's cool is sometimes when we go through and actually put things together to deal with chronic illness like parasites or mold or Lyme disease or whatever we're dealing with there, and we put those into our energy field, those remedies, a lot of those emotions start to go away because they're so driven by their chronic infections that we have. We don't even realize how they're manipulating us. There's a great book called This Is Your Brain on Parasites. If you want to learn more about it, this one, there's some horrifying things and then you start reading it, but to understand what it actually is and how they manipulate our mood in our society and how we respond to stressors in our life, it's pretty interesting. So
super interesting. I just wrote that down. That's a little horrifying slightly, but in a good way, I guess, because we at least are addressing it now.
what I liked about that book was I was finding all these things that I didn't learn about in school. I didn't have any other doctors there. I'm like, am I out here in left field? Am I on my own here? Am I really finding what I'm finding? I started reading some of these books and finding something, go, oh no, they're actually validating exactly what I'm finding. Just nobody else is finding it because they're not doing the type of testing we're doing for it. And so they're not finding. So things that are in the brain, sometimes you can't do it. If you don't find it on imaging, you can't exactly stick a needle in somebody's brain and pull it out unless you're gonna do brain surgery. And most people aren't signing up for that just for exploratory. So it's going through and actually, okay, what's going on there frequency wise? I can figure out, is it the toxicity in there? Is it something in their environment, something in their work life? Is it a infection, parasites, all kinds of parasites of the brain we found on people? We've had a gal come in that was in a wheelchair and 2 weeks that couldn't move her feet. 2 weeks later, she walked out normally. She had 5 different parasites in her brain. And so we had to go through and work through to get this cleaned up. And it's still taking us a while to get her finished. But to see that dramatic change from mom has to pick me up out of a chair, 19-year-old young lady, pick her up out of a chair, set her in there and straighten her feet out and everything. She couldn't move to the point where she could actually walk out normally. That was incredible in 2 weeks.
That's literally amazing. Wow.
And that was a lot of toxins in the brain, clearing that out, getting that to function again for she had better control of her neurology. So
wow, that's genuinely so amazing. And you talking about the feelings buried alive never die, and talking about the emotional influence on the physical body as well. That reminds me of, you probably have heard of the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, where he talks about Emotions 2.0, the documentary.
yeah.
It's where I first started kind of like understanding the impact that our emotions had on us. And I was like, whoa, it's so crazy.
Well, we are biomagnetic, energetic beings, and so all these things interplay together, and you can't have those emotions without it affecting you in some way. So a lot of it's how do we respond to some of these things. So I go back and I look at a lot of the things like psychobiotics. I don't know, are you familiar with this term, psychobiotics? No. So there's a good book called Psychobiotic Revolution. And if you go back and you actually read about how they figured out that certain probiotics in our gut allow us to handle stress differently. And so one of the main studies they did is they took mice, I don't remember what type of mice they were, but they put them in a bucket of water and they did what they call a drowning test. They put them to the point where they about drown, they scoop them out, they save their life, they draw blood, they test them out, cortisol's through the roof, they're freaking out, they think they're dying. So the second group, what they did is they gave them a couple different probiotics, Lactobacillus reuteri and rhamnosus. And what they found was they put them in the dill and they swam for an hour and they didn't freak out. They pulled them out, tested, cortisol levels were normal. They go, how does that work? How does probiotics affect the way we think and how we deal with things? And so what they did is well, the only thing that connects the brain and the gut together is the vagus nerve. So they made a decision, cut the vagus nerve, put the mice that had those probiotics in the same test, and they started freaking out for about 5 minutes. They started drowning.
Wow.
We're talking about life or death situation here and how we respond to stress. What they found was there's certain probiotics that actually produce serotonin, makes us feel happier. It also helps with the bowels to move better. So that's a very important one to have in there. Rhamnosus is dealing with GABA, dealing with your body's ability to be able to settle down and relax, deal with inflammation in the nervous system, all through the vagus nerve and how it affects the brain. So they communicate through there. And so what they found was that they started putting this in here, it started changing people. So the question is, when you come in and you're a very stressful person, is it just because you don't have the right probiotics in your gut? And that goes back to, are you eating the right foods to build those probiotics? There's a lot of different things out there that you can eat that are bad for you that really just destroy your gut lining and destroy that. So it's kind of rebalancing those out. So we custom blend probiotics in here. We have tubs of powdered probiotics that we'll go through and actually test out what you need, custom blend it together, and figure out what you need as the dosage of it for your body.
Wow.
So we try to give your body just what it needs, not what it doesn't. So as we go through and test it out, it's like, what's best for you? How do we balance it out? So a lot of people with Lyme disease or parasites stuff in the gut, these are major things because this whole microbiota has been disrupted. We need to rebalance that back out so they can start to feel normal, relax. They don't respond to stressful situations the way they used to. They can just be a little more chill. So
that's awesome. Thank you for that explanation. Yeah, it's super interesting too, hearing, I guess, the trouble that can stem from, these other seemingly unrelated things that it causes literally all the problems.
Oh yeah.
So I was going to ask, because you mentioned the muscle testing that your doctor friend did, and then that's now what you do as well. So you're able to test and match what's going on with somebody via the muscle testing. Can you explain how that works a little bit?
in office, it's really easy to actually put things in people's field, hold a muscle up, you go strong. If I put something near you, a certain frequency for a bacteria or a parasite, and you go weak, that shows us that we have a connection there, a frequency matching. It's in your body, it's creating an issue with the nervous system. Now, over the Zoom calls, here's what gets really interesting, which blew my mind when we started doing it, actually started working really well, was the fact I go, well, as I see you right now through the video, I'm picking up audio frequencies, I'm picking up visual frequencies, but what other frequencies are coming through there that are being passed on that if we're not aware of, we're not sensitive to, we don't know it's there. So as we train ourselves to actually go through and test things with hand modes to make a frequency, we can figure things out. We can find a lot of things and be able to address a lot of stuff and put together just through Zoom calls. I'll be honest, I'm probably 90-95% accurate over Zoom. We get more things in office. So I have a lot of people that we treat online that eventually come in office if we're still having troubles to find some things that are underneath, and people come in from all over the country. We have people from across the world now that are coming in to our clinic for 2 weeks to 4 weeks at a time. We go through and really dive in, and they spend an hour with us every day, plus all the therapies to go through and really get to the root and the bottom of everything and process through there. There's so many things that people come in, they've issues with in front of the 2 weeks, that by we get down, we've already cleared out in the 2 weeks where they're here. Wow. And it's putting the protocol together to go back home and finish healing and what we need to do, and then we follow up from there. So
definitely. That's amazing. I love that you guys are able to like accommodate other people, you know, outside of your local area, because this is something I feel like very much more niche. I'm very into this type of work as well, and I didn't know until a friend put me onto it. So it's exciting. That's again also why obviously we're doing the Zoom call to kind of like spread Absolutely. The information here.
Help as many people as we can.
Definitely. Yeah. I love that approach too. It's refreshing. So this is kind of giving me some vibes of, you know, the more holistic approach, kind of intuitive working with your body as well. And I was just wondering if you had any kind of thoughts on the medical medium, as I feel like that's something more emerging in the general trying holistic society.
So I don't know a lot about it. I haven't really read a lot of stuff, but I've had a lot of patients that have. They've come in, a lot of them are a lot of celery juice and a lot of things like that. And what we found is that over time, if you have trouble digesting, you're getting gut issues, things like this, if you constantly put something into your body that you can't process very well, or you start putting it in at a level at which your body can't handle it, it starts to become sensitive, then allergenic, and then it becomes toxic. So now you're actually poisoning yourself with something. And that's what I got to with some of my patients that have been doing some of the stuff for so long, trying to get better, they're actually making themselves worse. So any benefit they got out of it. And so this is why we have to regulate and monitor things. This is also why people get put on these different diets. So people come and see me, they've been on food allergy diets forever. Why was I having an allergic to this? And that's why I changed my diet to this, and I started becoming allergic to that. And they keep going through the cycle, and they're not actually dealing with the root cause. So I get back down to it, I deal with parasites, we deal with Lyme, mold, whatever it is that's in there, viruses in the gut. We clean some of that stuff up. We start to see all these sensitivities and food issues go away. I have kids that come in that have wheat issues and nut issues and things like this. And when we deal with hookworm, some of these other parasites, all of a sudden they can have everything normal again, which kind of blew my mind when I started doing it. I'm like, that really worked. They could eat this and not have any issue, because that's not what I learned in school. You have to do a cycle diet and do all these things here, try to do it all. And I was like, wait a minute, we're getting to the heart of an issue here and cleaning this up. Mom's calling, crying. My son got peanuts, you know, and he didn't have a reaction. So I guess we fixed that too. And it was just exciting to hear, you know, that these kids now have the ability to, and again, grains are inflammatory. So I'm not running and say, eat all the grains you want, they're inflammatory, but to the point where now these kids, they have to have a special diet when they go over to a birthday party. They can't have the cake. They can't have the sleepover. All these, so it limits them. It kind of really separates them from everyone else. And they really miss out on a lot of their childhood and stuff. And so it's like, okay, so they're going to eat cake at a birthday party once in a while. Great. But they don't react to it. They don't, mom doesn't run with the EpiPen or something, you know, it's not having an issue there. And so mom's not constantly sitting there making food, pre-making everything. They can just decide, hey, we're going to go do something today without having to plan this whole thing out. And it's like, oh, that's too much work. We're just going to stay home. And so having the ability to kind of live a life of normalcy and to be able to go and do things, you know, still being a little guarded there, but just to kind of return that, that's huge for me to see these kids live a life like that.
Yeah, that's
I was
super
someone
miraculous.
As a kid, I had a lot of ADHD issues. And, you know, again, Lyme, all these other things I didn't know was an issue. And they really weren't testing that back in the 80s here in Kansas. And so I had all kinds of trouble in school, you know, and so I struggled and everything. I barely got through high school. I just couldn't focus, couldn't do anything. And so when I went back to college, that was a lot of work. I made it though. Trying to figure out what was wrong with me is kind of my driving force there. But going back and seeing these kids who come in, and we do things there, we do brain mapping. So we actually go through and actually map the brain on these kids, go through and balance out neurotransmitters, everything, so they can do good in school. If I can take a kid who's struggling in school and I can change that, I change the entire trajectory of his life and his wife and his kids and generations to come. And so it's cool for me to see that how we were changing these lives, and somebody who may have just kind of fell off the wayside, we're actually able to give them a future in a lot of ways. That excites me.
That's literally so miraculous. And it's so interesting because as you're explaining it, it's like I see that the prior approaches, I guess, with these kind of one size fits all, like try this diet or try this juice or whatever, it's very much like one size fits all, which is really never the case almost. I feel like it really is a very individual thing, because if you're able to kind of tap into that individual, it's just exponentially, healing right there. You're able to feel
Our protocol is exactly what your body needs. I don't make this protocol for anybody else. It's specifically to what your body needs. So it's as close as we get to personalized healthcare. What does your body need? I'm not going to try to give it anything it doesn't, because I don't want to put any additional load on there. So you're only going to get what your body needs to clear out and do what it needs at the time.
Yeah.
And it's about personalized as we can get.
It seems, I mean, from, the results that I've heard and even my experience with the one dose that I've taken, it already has done way more than many professionals I've seen in other sectors. So it's helpful. So what kind of ailments are you able to help people heal from? I know you mentioned some allergies, nuts, and everything. Those stem from other things. Are there ailments that Western medicine has deemed untreatable, or, you specialize in chronic, so that you're able to help people from that they say can't be helped?
Let me change perspective a little bit here. Everything has a name. I have patients that come and go, I have gastritis. I'm like, oh, you have a tummy ache. It means you have inflammation of the stomach. Yeah, that's what the doctor told me. Go, well, what's causing it? Is it parasites? Is it bacteria? Is it virus? What's the underlying cause of it here? Do we not have any digestive enzymes? Putting a name on it is just a name. So we don't necessarily know that's what it is. So there's so many different diagnoses you get that can all go back to one underlying root cause. So it's like, yeah, we can probably go through and figure out quite a bit of stuff on people and figure out the underlying causes here. Now, I can't name every single thing that's out there because there's so many diagnoses for everything now. And we have all these syndromes, which means they don't have a clue what's causing it. They just have a collection of symptoms. Mm-hmm. And so, well, what's causing that? What's going on? What ALS? What are the underlying causes for that? How do we go through and treat these things here that aren't being diagnosed because of self-infection? So there's so many things that by the time it gets out to the symptomology, what they're actually diagnosing it with could have a root cause. And so I like to say, yeah, we can probably get everybody in here and we're probably going to have a pretty good chance of figuring something out. So, and again, legal disclaimer, I don't treat cancer. It's not my deal, so I have to always say that. Now, I do treat precancerous conditions. So the things that are documented, parasites, viruses, things like this, that can lead to cancer, these are the things that we like to key in on and try to clean up and everything else. So
interesting. Thank you. So I know that from having an appointment with you, you do not only just the physical ailments, but as well as the energetic / like chakra assessment that tap into it. And could you elaborate a little bit more on that process, as well as like the crystal frequencies?
Sure. And so there's several things I like to do. So we go through and find everything. I go, okay, how else can I challenge the body to bring things to the surface to deal with? So in this case for you, I have glasses, different colored glasses that go to the different chakra points. I just put them on the camera, makes the whole screen go that color, so we can actually go through and see how your body changed in response to that color there. There's different music frequencies we haven't got into yet to you've seen. There's all kinds of other different ways that we come through and stress the body in ways that we normally deal with. In office, we use magnets. We put giant magnets around you. We flip polarities all around through the body. We find if your body can handle that. So we go through and we deal with those different things there. So as I go through the chakras I'm looking at here, but what I'm doing is I'm literally taking that area of the body, whether it's the root chakras, so red glasses, and we're bringing the colon and the spleen and adrenals all to the surface here. I feel like it's kind of like Iron Man. We kind of pulls the whole screen up and magnifies it. And we're going through and say, okay, what else is in here that we need to magnify to find that may be hiding? So again, we're doing our initial assessment. We're finding out your body's screaming. If your body's like, help me, this is what I need help with. After we get to a certain point, it's like, I'm good, leave me alone. I go, wait a minute, there's still more here. And so we have to go through, we have to challenge and stress the body before we start screaming out for help there. And so there's all kinds of different ways we do that. In this case with you, we were able to go through certain colored glasses that you test to, and it took us to certain things here. So I have what I call my emotional toolbox, which I have several hundred different things, from flower essences to gemstone frequencies to all these different things here. And we go through and actually test through and figure out which ones you need to balance that out. What's cool is as we're dealing with some of these emotions here and we deal with this, sometimes we deal with that, parasite remedies and other things that we tested to before go away because they're only there and they're only allowed to exist because of the emotions that have been trapped there that are limiting our body from being able to deal with it. Wow. So it's a very important part that we deal with it. So we're dealing with emotions, we're dealing with mental, we're dealing with physical, we're dealing with chemical. Sometimes it's social. We bring families in, we have to go through them and deal with things. We do balancing, energy balancing between parents and kids or husband and wife to try to get them where they're not actually making each other weak, actually strengthen each other. So these are very important things to be able to go through and help with the relationships and all these different aspects here. So it's awesome to be able to restore these people and these relationships and get them so they can function well together. So
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a super multifaceted approach. I love it because, I feel like as humans, we're looked at as kind of, these like one size fits all, as you
Yep.
mentioned. So we're not. And it's you have to get all the different angles to kind of tap in with that. So I love that. Okay. So the next question I have is, are parasites common in people that you see a lot? Is that like typically an issue that you see in a lot of people?
I think there's a huge pandemic with parasites right now, and people are unaware of it. And part of it is, I think it's part of the mindset. Even the medical field is, well, we're clean in America. We're sanitary. We don't have these types of issues. And where I talk to patients I have in other countries in the Mediterranean or in the Caribbean and stuff, like we take antiparasiticals 2 to 3 times a year, just standard, just because of it. And we don't do that here. And there's so many things now in this society that's so transient. We have things shipped in from all over the world, and we go to the grocery store, we pick stuff up, or it's the fruits next to all the other fruits. So things get spread. We get eggs and things like that. And I think it's a huge thing. So one of the big ones that we find is hookworm. And hookworm's one that you just get by walking barefooted outside. There's all kinds of fascinating stories and books about how this is one of the main reasons why they think the South lost the Civil War is because they were all anemic. Because the issue with the hookworm through the South there was just obliterating them. There was a stigma in the early 1900s of the lazy Southerners sitting on their front porch because of the heat and everything else, and they all had anemia. And it's how they go through and found that this is all caused by hookworm creating all these issues here. It's also one thing that causes food allergies, but it creates anemia, and so it creates a big issue. So all these people run around barefooted down there. And so what they did is they came through and they figured out that they need to have everybody wear shoes, that the outhouses had to be dug 6 feet deep, not 4 feet like they've been doing, because they can actually travel up 6 feet to the top there. So when you get these into your skin, they burrow their way through your body, they burrow your way up to the back of your throat. You get this dry cough for a little bit, it's down your throat and gets in your gut. And it starts chewing on the lining of your gut, your microvilli starts chewing it off. And the blood comes out, they suck in the blood, and so it starts eating your blood there, because all infections need iron. What your body will do is they'll try to hide the iron in the tissues. And so we see anemia and dips here. I have patients that go through and say, oh, well, we have anemia issues. And so what they do is they give more iron shoots back up, and it goes way down real fast. What happened? I go, well, your body's trying to hide it. Your body's telling you to stop helping it, because all you're doing is feeding the parasites.
Wow.
You're making it worse. So we got to kill them off to be able to get that to return to normal, so the body can regulate that. It's pretty fascinating. So that's hookworm. That's one of the biggest ones, most common ones we see. I was reading an article a while back that said that T. gondii, Toxoplasma gondii, is probably the most successful parasite in the world. And this one comes from cats. It replicates in cats. And that's because throughout most of the history of the world, outside of the Egyptians, nobody really kept cats as pets until the 1800s in Paris, and it started to become this nouveau riche thing to do. So everybody started having cats as pets. Well, if a mouse gets T. gondii in it, it reduces all its inhibitions. And so what it'll do is it'll run right out of cat. So cats don't have to really work hard to get them.
Wow.
And so it'll get in there, and they can only recycle or actually propagate inside of a cat. And so then they get spread from there. And so this is considered the most successful one. Now, this one's really interesting. Now, if you go back to the book, this year bringing a parasite. So we're talking about all the parasites that people deal with. A third of the book is dedicated to this one alone.
Wow.
And this is about how it goes through, and it can affect your neurology depending on where it lands in the brain, depends on what's happening. So the gal I had came in with that. One of the first ones I really dealt with it. We had the trash truck behind the building came to pick up the dumpster, and it dropped it. You hear the sounds of the building, and she passed out from the sound of it. And about fell right off the table. It's like, whoa.
Whoa.
Other times we play certain music frequency, try to, like I said, challenge or stress the body. And she literally take her fingernails and start digging into her head. She's bleeding down her face or try to rip through her arms, trying to get to it. Just bleeding everywhere. It's like, wow. So this is really affecting that. So it took us about a year to really get that cleared out to the point where we didn't test anymore, because brain get into neurology, it takes a little while. But it's absolutely fascinating seeing that change in her. And I go, okay. And I found it more and more and more and more people. Someone came with multiple personalities one day, and that was what kind of tied back to it. So depending on where it lands in the brain, depends on what's going on there. And again, you go back to it, go, well, how do you find this? In traditional medicine, you're not going to find it in blood work. You may find your eosinophils be high. That's usually if it's in your tissues or in the blood. But when it gets into the neurology, you don't see that pop up as much. So these are things that we can find underlying causes of things that they're just not finding. This is why a lot of doctors I talk to, they look at me in disbelief going, you're doing what? You found what? I go, you don't understand. You have no relevance. You have no reference point for what I'm talking about here. And you have no idea how many people are coming through your office and clinic and everything else that you're totally missing everything.
Yeah.
And that's where I was at one point. So I understand the frustration what they're dealing with, because that's where I was.
Yeah.
And so I feel bad for them. I feel bad for the patients too. But it's like, how do we change this? How do we modify it? So what we're trying to do is build a clinic here where we can start showing dramatic changes. Because if we're going to show what we can do here, we got to get the results. And the more and more results we get for people, the more people get results, the more we have that reference to go, look what we've been able to accomplish through the way we do things. That makes it more mainstream and we get more people learning about it.
Totally. Yeah. It seems like the next step, honestly, for all these things, because, we've tried everything. And like you mentioned, you were there, you were at that point where couldn't figure out what was wrong. And then trying this new approach from a different perspective shed some new light, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. So in addition, I know you just went over some of the types of parasites, but what other common issues do you see amongst like people that come in generally?
So again, I'm more of a chronic illness practice. So I see a certain section of the population where in general it may not reflect the entire population, but for who comes to see me because of who they've been referred by, I had this, he fixed it. There's usually major issues. So we find a lot of stuff like breathing issues, a lot of asthma in kids and stuff like this. This goes back to sometimes high eosinophilia. People don't understand that when you have a lot of parasites, your eosinophils are the white blood cells that fight off, and when they get very high, they can actually create asthma-like symptoms in the body. And so we find a lot of these things there. Sometimes there's a paragonimous, which is a lung fluke that we find in there sometimes that plays into that as well. So a lot of breathing issues. The big things that we look at when people come in goes that they recognize, I don't feel well, I'm inflamed, so I hurt, I don't sleep well, I have low energy. That's the three most common complaints that people come in with. This is the ones that we notice the most. Most of the other ones that we just tuck away and we bring it up and go, oh yeah, I deal with that too. I forgot about that. Because those aren't the ones that are affecting their ability to actually perform and do what they need to do to survive in a big way. Well, all those things come back to chronic infections. We get to viruses and stuff that people have, like people have mono in high school and stuff, the kissing disease and Epstein-Barr virus. And what we do is we find out later in life is they get this ringing in their ears, this Meniere's is almost debilitating. I had one guy who was in Vegas and the slot machines went off and he fell to the floor screaming in pain because of that.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
Epstein-Barr virus was trapped in there. A lot of these viruses will get trapped in our neurology, kind of like herpes zoster actually comes out to shingles, which was chickenpox. And so as we go through and we try to figure these things out, okay, where are these hiding at? And how do we clear them out? How do we get about doing that? I have a lot of vaccine injured kids I've worked with, which are some of the most horrifying things that some of these parents deal with. And we've actually been able to completely change their life by going through and what we call devaccinating or detoxifying all these aspects of things that are in their system. A lot of thimerosal and mercury in there. Once we clear the mercury out, what's interesting is all these kids seem to go a little crazy for a little while. Their mom and dad's like, what is going on? And all these viruses are coming up to the surface that have been hidden or suppressed underneath that mercury, the thimerosal. And as we clean that out, we go clean up the virus and stuff, get that put together again. All of a sudden they're going, well, my kids are still crazy. I go, well, they're normal crazy now. There's something showed up and that's just the way kids are. Oh, okay. It's been cool to see how these kids have really got their lives back. They're not sensitive to everything. I've had one family literally sold their house, got rid of their animals, everything else, moved into a brand new house. Kids still have the exact same issues.
Wow.
And they're like, wow, what's going on here? So that was part of that, going through and cleaning that up.
Yeah, thank you for that. Another question. So if people are interested in doing what you do, what are some approaches they could take? I feel like a lot of people do want to get into the industry of like helping and medicine and everything like that. But as an emerging field, what is some advice you could give them?
It depends on how you want to go about it. So I always jokingly say, on the way to becoming a healer, I became a doctor too.
I love that.
Because my goal wasn't just to be a doctor. My goal is to heal people. I want to be a healer. And even though I became a doctor, I still wasn't doing the healing that I wanted. So it depends on what you want to do, what avenue you want to go through it. So there's a lot of ways to help people with energy medicine. There is a book called Your Body Can Talk. I don't remember the lady's name. It's on Amazon. It kind of goes through some of the basics of this testing of energy testing. So it'd be a good place to start. If you want to go read and research a little bit and understand some of the basics. If you actually want to get into this full time, I myself went to school, became a chiropractor, learned a whole lot there, went farther that, became a DAPC trained doctor, which DAPC is the Diplomate of American Board of Chiropractic Internists to do functional medicine, many classes, many things there. Back in 2013, I got involved in methylation. So everybody hears about methylation now that it's more commonplace. Back then it was kind of new and emerging. And so I learned that and I went through and actually worked for a company. I went through and taught doctors how to test for it and how to treat for it. And so I've been doing that for a long time. What I found was even though I've been working on that and we'd get really good results with some things, it would start to taper off and then start going back. I was like, well, why didn't that work? It worked good for a while, or things that change, and we're trying to deal with how the body responds genetically to its responses of stressors. And what I did is I found test kits that I could use for the same things I was doing the genetics. And I found, okay, you have all these issues going on, but when I put the parasite remedy next to you, they go away. So even though you have this genetic ability to be expressed in a certain way, is it being expressed or is it being suppressed? And what is the interfering factor and how do we deal with it? So when we deal with chronic illness, start cleaning that up, we see a lot of these issues that you have genetically, or you're predisposed to have these because of this infection. It drives you in that direction. So there's a lot of different things I've been through. I've been a sports medicine doctor for some semi-proteins here in town. I've done a lot of different stuff here that gives me this very well-rounded kind of view or aspect. Somebody walks in, I can look at them from structurally, from sports, I can look at them from chemically, methyl genetics, I can do all these different things there. So depending on what you're wanting to do,
Yeah.
it depends on how you go about doing it. But if you're interested in it and you want to start kind of dabbling in it, kind of trying to figure it out, that book is, I think it's Levine is the one who wrote it, but Your Body Can Talk. And that's a good way to get started, at least to start looking into it. If you become a doctor and you want to learn more of it, I have some nurse practitioners that want to come in and work with us that want to learn what we do. And so it's just finding somebody that can go through and do that. There's a lot of different techniques, different people out there do different things. This is kind of one we've honed and kind of fine-tuned and try to make it as efficient and quick as possible, get the best results. And we're constantly in development of that and refining that. So
very cool. Yeah, it seems like when you mentioned about the genetics too, is that epigenetics? Is that like
yes,
tied to
epigenetics.
Awesome.
Yep.
Cool. Thank
So
you.
there's a book called Dirty Genes that's pretty popular,
Okay.
And there's some aspects to that he does a really good job of explaining it. But even then going back and say, okay, but these are being caused by this expression. And so that's why I stopped doing as much of the epigenetics, because it's like, yeah, but I'm working on this, but that's not still the root cause. It's like you go to a doctor and you have a symptom or whatever else, this fixes that. You go to a functional medicine doctor, you have this, but here's something natural to take care of that. Then you get into epigenetics. Well, you have this thing that could be an issue. We don't know what it is, but take this. But what's underlying all that?
Mm-hmm.
What is actually driving these things? What stressors are we having in our body that deal with that? I need to address those things and then see how everything else falls out. So when people come in, I use the joke about a tree. They come in, the leaves are brown. Why? It's the middle of summer. The water's out there. What's going on in the root system? What do we have to go down to the roots and dive down and figure out what's there? The soil and your terrain. In this case, your terrain also is another word for your gut. How's that process? How are you doing with that? You have the right probiotics in there. Same thing goes with the soil and the ground for plants. If you don't have the right probiotics in there, they're going to have trouble surviving as well.
Yeah.
So this kind of goes back to how our guts is our terrain here of what we need to take care of, because that affects our body. It affects the leaves of the tree and how well they grow.
It's so interesting that you just used the analogy of the tree, because before you said that, I was picturing like tree, like branches. Cause I was like, as you're explaining this, it seems like there's so many different avenues that people can get into, but it's all stemming back to one thing. So that's awesome. That's crazy.
What is the root dysfunction of all that? And that's why we talked about earlier about, well, what are they coming in diagnosed with? I don't know if that's actually what it is, or if there's something that's underneath that. So, and the thing that, I'll throw this out here. We offer a 20-minute consult for anybody who wants to come in and kick the tires. Call us, let's sit down, let's have a talk. If you want to proceed past the 20 minutes, then we'll start going to a charge time. But for 20 minutes, we can sit down and discuss your case, test things out and see, can we even help you or not? And so the worst thing that happens is we waste 20 minutes of our time. So, but we want to go through and help people. And this is where we kind of go through and say, okay, I don't waste your time, energy, or money. I only want to help you if I can actually help you. And that's how we can go through and kind of figure those things out.
Yeah, that's an amazing approach. Thank you. Also, do you have a fun fact that you people might not know that you didn't even know until you were able to get into this work? I know we went over some of it, but
well, this is kind of interesting because I was thinking about this. I didn't really think I had much, and I started thinking about, I come from such a physical background from chiropractic and sports and everything else, and I got into this energy medicine, and after a while of working on it, I was amazed at how much what we project energetically affects our environment around us, and sometimes how we let things in our environment around us affect us energetically. We're unaware of it. And so becoming more in tune to that and become more aware of that allows me to go through and say, okay, here's how I can help people just in my energy field and project this out here, and just how much we're influenced by each other's energy and how we can change that. So one of the most infectious things in the world that you can do to change your environment around you is just to smile at people, because people have a hard time not smiling back. And when they smile, it changes their biochemistry, it changes the way they function, it changes their attitude, it changes everything. So smiling is one of the best things you can do. If you want to change your environment around you, just smile at everybody.
I love that. That's contagious. I think you just did it, and I subconsciously just did it. I was like, okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. So it's super interestingly, like a parallel almost. What I do also is study kind of how energy, affects everything. And it's interesting because a lot of quantum physicists and theorists and everything, it's no longer being looked at as like the physical and like other things. It's literally like the physical is caused by the energy. Like the energy
Yeah,
hones into the physical. So that's an awesome, I love this
absolutely.
approach.
We're
Yeah.
getting to the spooky physics now where it's like, oh,
I love spooky physics, spooky action at a
it's
distance,
really
if you
cool to
will.
understand it. So
And so I know depending on the ailment, it might take a different amount of time to heal something, but generally, do you have an idea of like how long it takes to heal from certain things?
So I'll give you kind of ballparks here. People come in with parasites, depending on where they are and whether infection they have and everything else. I always tell them it's 3 months to 2 years. Now, in that, the last year may be just a minor dose. We're taking like a dropper or something. We're just trying to keep that there to make sure no eggs come in or anything else, because we're still trying to rebuild their immune system, their constitution, everything that comes along with it. And I got to the point, and I made this mistake, and I kick myself all the time, because it's like I get somebody like, "Oh, you're not testing the parasite anymore. You're done with that." We take them off of it. 2 months later, it starts coming back up again. We missed it. So I try to get people to the point where they don't test to it. And I've got to the point where like we got to be super vigilant about this. I'm going to keep you on a small dose where it's going to last you for a while, but you're going to go through and take this every day just to make sure nothing's creeps back up on us. And sometimes that's 3 months, sometimes that's a year of doing that just to make sure we don't have that. Again, it depends on what's going on in the rest of the body there. And so we go through, we continually test and we modify and we change that. And here's where it gets interesting is because depending on the moon phase too, because the moon affects us so much, people don't realize it. So as a general rule, not all parasites act this way, but at the new moon, they turn on, they start activating, they start becoming very active, and they ramp themselves up to the full moon. At the full moon, they start laying eggs.
Oh,
And then they start going back down to a lull for 2 weeks, and you can't find anything. This is also why sometimes people go, well, I eat this food and it just messed me up. But I ate it a week ago, it didn't bother me. Well, where were the parasites out in that? And different things that can affect us different ways. This is also where people go, hey, do you have itchy butt? And they're like, well, sometimes. It's the same reason why you see your dogs dragging their butt across the carpet is they're trying to get rid of the eggs that have been laid on that. And so now what they're doing is actually put these eggs on the floor that you're kicking up in the air and you're breathing in and get to your system. I know it's horrifying. It's
I don't like
disgusting,
that.
but
I don't
this
like
is the
it.
reality of the world that we live in. So if your animals are dragging their butts, it's because they're irritating the flame because of eggs that are being laid there around the rectal opening there, and that's how they're trying to get rid of it. So if
Oh
you have
my
itchy butt,
God.
or if he wants to talk about it, but people go, yeah, sometimes I do. Around the full moon,
Wow.
I don't know. Start documenting it. So this is
Wow.
where you see this, because this is their natural cycle for you to push out these things. So some people get flatulence and gas and it blows it out. So what's in a fart? That's disgusting. I'm sorry I said that, but you never know.
Yeah, right?
So this is how the stuff gets spread and people don't realize it. But this is how they, even in the nature, get spread around. So
Wow, that's like amazing in a horrifying way. Like I never even thought about that.
yeah,
And as you were talking about the full moon, that just kind of made me think like, the stereotypes of like, oh, people are crazy around the full moon. Is that why?
yeah. A lot of times. And so you go back, you look at it, because I have friends that work in emergency room departments. My father-in-law was a doctor at an emergency room. And he goes, oh yeah, the full moon, all the crazies come out. Well, the toxins are being released that are affecting their brains, all the stuff's going on in their body, and they don't know what's going on. And so yeah, so it's also why with T. gondii, the one that replicates in cats, this is why you hear the crazy cat lady, and there's
Wow.
probably some truth to that there. So that's probably why.
Wow. That's like, wow. My mind's being blown continuously. This is amazing. The next question I have is there anything that your work cannot treat or like you don't, I know you said you don't treat cancer or anything like that,
Don't
but
treat cancer. Seems like everybody walks in my door, we find something, because just the nature of what we do, whether it's dealing with the chemistry, the infections, hormones, neurotransmitters, dealing with the emotions that are trapped, things like this, there's always something there that we can tie into, because we have such a multifaceted approach that we can go through and find stuff to help. And again, this is where I go back to, I said, I don't ever say no, but I can tell you what, call us, we'll give you 20 minutes, let's see if we can figure something out.
definitely.
That's my best. When people ask me questions all the time, I said, I don't know, let's test it out. People go, well, I have this product at home that does this, or I have this that's there. I go, did you bring it with you? No, bring it next time. Let's test it out. Let's prove it out. I can give you my answer. I may be completely wrong. I'd really test it and prove it out and actually show that that's actually what we need to do.
Very
Anytime we
cool.
can get that, I like to prove it. We're not in Missouri, which is the show me state. We're in Kansas next door, but we're in the prove it state.
Some Midwest jokes. Can I ask also, it's okay if you like don't have the answer for this or anything, but is cancer just like a different breed of work? Is that why you don't do it, or is it
No. Legally,
legally?
I am not allowed. Only an oncologist is legally allowed to treat that. in the United States.
Wow.
So a medical doctor isn't really allowed to treat either unless they're an oncologist. So my scope of practice as a chiropractor, I am not allowed to say I treat it. I don't treat it. That is the reason why we're not.
You're
I'll
not
go to
allowed.
jail.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll
But
go to
like,
jail.
so like, even if you technically actually could, you're not allowed.
We're not allowed. That's why I don't treat cancer in the body. I treat people who have cancer, but I'm not treating the cancer.
Wow.
That's for the oncologist to deal with. I don't deal with
Yeah.
that. I'm dealing with other infections, other things that are in my purview I'm allowed to do.
For
So
sure.
that's the rule. That's the standard. That is what the rules are in the United States.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. And I know you mentioned earlier Macy's Miracle. Is that the most dramatic, like life-changing story you've ever witnessed from the work that you've done?
I have several of them that I have a lot of that are like that. That's the one that had the biggest impact on me because, like I said, that one took me to my wits' end. It took me to the point where, am I really finding this? Am I really have it? And I had to really go out and find stuff. I'm like, the stuff I have in my room isn't working. I had to go learn and research and find all these things. And I mean, really, that was something that I literally, all my blood, sweat, and tears I had went into that case there, which allowed me to grow and learn so much and to be able to help so many other people now. So that was a very dynamic one for me. And they're the ones that came in afterwards. They said, oh, we're going to do a video for you. And they came in and it was really kind of cool because of the way the story goes. I'm not involved in it. It's just the father and the daughter actually telling their story from two different perspectives of what they saw the parent coming in and as a patient coming in. So you kind of get both of them to kind of tell their story. And it's kind of cool to see that and then see where it is now. And so it's pretty amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm excited to link that and check it out as well. Last question. Is there anything you think I might have missed or anything you think the public would find important or that you want to share?
There's so much that we deal with in the United States or around the world even that is affecting us on a daily basis, from 5G, Wi-Fi, the pandemics that are going on, the fear mongering that is being leached out onto us and everything else that's affected such a negative way. At the end of the day, just be happy. Enjoy the ride. Take a moment to appreciate the small things in your life and let the fear dissipate a little bit, because that is one thing that just absolutely I see it in this generation that's coming up. And it's mortifying because they live in a constant state of fear of the next thing that's happening. And it's not healthy for them. It's not good. It's not going to help them develop. It's not going to help them raise children. And I just want people to really step back and say, life's not that bad. It's pretty good in the most part here we're dealing with. And just, even though I have these struggles, even though I have these things that we're dealing with, I've got to take a moment and appreciate how good I do have it and just smile, smile at people and just kind of really just enjoy life in general. Even though it does have its ups and downs, things will get better, and we're here to help. So we do have 4 other doctors besides me here that all are invested as I am in this. And so if you want to come in, you want to get help and we can help you, great. If you don't see me, it's fine. These other doctors they're superb. I let them treat me. So, it's a good, and the other side of it is they all come from different backgrounds. We all work together and as a team. So it's very not uncommon if you come into the clinic here that you'll see your major doctor, but you'll have 2 or 3 other doctors that make a step in and kind of check things out just because we're looking for, give me some more insight. What are you finding here? Because we're a team here who's very dedicated to getting results more than anything else. Our egos don't really have anything to do with anything. It's not about our egos, about getting results that we care about. So
I love that so much. And that's so interesting too. I love the perspective you have where it's like, focus on the good, be happy. Also, as you mentioned, like with, for example, like the rat that they were trying to drown, it's like being in that constant like stress hormone is probably causing other problems for your body, like
absolutely
rooting from that.
Exactly. Mineral deficiencies, all kinds of things that go into that would affect your energy levels, hormones. I mean, the whole thing just starts to fall apart. We are not designed to live in a chronic state. So we have 2 systems that we live in, a parasympathetic and a sympathetic. Sympathetic is fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. 23 hours a day, you should be in parasympathetic. An hour a day, you may have a stressful event, something goes on that you need to be able to call on that cortisol to have that to deal with that response. But we don't. We live the other way. The response that we have to bills coming in or something else is the same thing as a bear trying to attack us, and we respond that way. But we don't, okay, we're done, the bear's gone, we're fine now. We're still in that state, we're chronically stuck there, which changes this over time, changes our neuroplasticity of our brain, how we think, how we function, how we react to other people. Totally. Which in the long term isn't good for us as a culture society.
Yeah, it makes sense. Awesome. Thank you so much for all your time.
Absolutely.
and all of your amazing insight and answers. I'm sure everybody's going to be really excited to kind of learn about this from a new approach.
Yeah.
And are there any like links or any social media tags that you want to mention?
The big one is www.docerelifecenter.com, which you'll find below. And that's to go to our website, and they'll allow you to be able to contact us, put paperwork in if you want to become a patient, and kind of just set up a consult and kind of see if there's something we can do to help out.
Amazing. Thank you so much again for everything. This was so awesome. And I had a really amazing time learning from you as well.
Absolutely. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Definitely. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, so you guys have heard from Dr. Frank, and now we are going to meet some of the other practitioners from the practice. Hi.
Oh, hi. So I'm Dr. Craig Farney. It's funny, I just checked out your TikTok site and was noticing all the different, you've checked into a whole lot of different avenues of life. I'm kind of known as the emotional guy around here. I like to dig into all the emotions and pick people's brains apart and really get at the why as to why we do what we do. I'm fascinated by why we make the decisions that we do. And it's, I believe a lot in programming. We have so many programs that we've had installed into us that weren't even our choice, and getting down to some of those factors that leads to why we even react to the way that we do to life, and go into that stress state when we aren't being chased by a bear, but yet our bodies react that way. And so I think that's a huge key factor in why we get sick. And so I'm even doing an article on heart disease that I think at the root of it is we all tend to suffer from broken hearts, and it literally breaks our hearts and destroys our hearts. And so that's one of the things we work to get at is why. And so, well, what I'm also fascinated by is what Dr. Kyson talked about, that how the influences of things like parasites and viruses and bacteria that influence those emotions as well. So that's been something I've learned a lot lately that I think is really cool.
That's super fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. I
You're very
also would
welcome.
love to pick your brain at a later point too. We can connect if you're interested, but I'm literally writing a book as well about like how the programs that we pick up from other people are what causes, like, we're operating from not even us. Like, it's not even us. We're just like repeating cycles.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
we perpetuate the same problem from generation to generation to generation, and wonder why we have the same problems.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
fascinating.
I'd love to connect. So
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
I'll step out and let someone else step in.
Great. Thank you. Great to meet you.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you too.
All right. How's it going?
Good. How about you?
Good. I am Dr. Luke Moore, one of the 5 doctors here at Docere Life Center. We all kind of have a lot of overlap as far as seeing the chronic illness world. And within that, you have of course, your Lyme patients, your mold illness patients, and of course, your parasitic patients and chronic fatigue and much, much more. But that's kind of a nice segue. I know Dr. Kyson touched on this a little bit. We're so concerned with what's in a name, right? We're so concerned of having labels and, well, I have this, and therefore I'm destined to live with this. And while that's certainly true with some conditions, that's we do care about what you have for certain, but we care more about the why you have it and what's giving your body that to be in that position that allows you to have parasite or Lyme, and working on those things to alleviate it. So we're not so much concerned with labels or diagnoses so much. We want to help get to the root cause of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Batter up.
Hi.
All right. Hello there. So I'm actually Dr. Caleb Frank. I am Dr. Kyson's younger brother. I'm also the newest to the team. I actually just got here a few weeks ago.
Nice.
So my brother actually did teach me a lot of this stuff, and over the years I've been working on it, but just the level that we can work through here is pretty amazing, and it's exciting. I'm still kind of trying to develop where my specific strength is. Everybody kind of has their place where they excel at. To some degree, I'm still working on figuring out what mine is. But lately I have been kind of, agreeing with Dr. Craig on a lot of things, looking at the brain and emotions, and just even looking at the thought processes and how that becomes through neuroplasticity engraved in our minds. It becomes a part of our being, and then all of our thoughts or all of our feelings, our emotions and actions develop and stem from that. So that's one of the things that I've been kind of really interested in this last year, just looking at how we become who we are. And all of it, most of it starts with who we think we are, and just realizing the importance and the power of our own thoughts. So those are some really cool things. And then even more, just being able to see how we can get beyond chemical, beyond emotional, we can get into psychological, but even more into spiritual aspects. And that's something that resonates a lot with me, is just, who am I? What is my purpose? What am I doing here? And this type of work opens up a whole new level of excitement and opportunity to be able to be who I feel I am called to be, and to be, like Dr. Kyson said earlier, a healer and not just a doctor.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for
Yep.
sharing. Yeah, it all
Yep.
definitely
You're welcome.
interconnects. So it's important that we start looking kind of beyond just the 3D physical, here's my body.
Yeah. Yep. We can finally treat the whole person.
Definitely. Love that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this interview. I hope it was insightful. Links for the website as well as social media and everything are in the caption below. Feel free to reach out. And like Dr. Frank mentioned, there is in fact a free 20-minute consultation for this. So just a disclaimer, it is not covered by insurance, as it is an alternative type of treatment. I personally found the cost definitely worth it for me, considering these are things that I would allegedly be dealing with my entire life. I do in fact think that the benefit extremely outweighs the cost. So it's definitely worth looking into if you're somebody that has had less than desirable results from working with modern medicine, and definitely another perspective to try. So thank you guys so much again. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want some more content. And if you have any questions regarding anything we discussed today or any type of this work, please feel free to leave it in the comments. Dr. Frank and his team are interested in doing a second interview with a panel of all of them together where we can discuss more in depth. So thank you so much again, and I hope this helped.